Morning all. It's coffee time again. I've been faffing around with getting the fire lit for about 20 minutes. Oh, 7:30, off goes the alarm. Right, here we are, see, 7:30 in the morning. So I've been faffing around trying to get the fire lit. That's lit now, it's nice and warm down here. Let's have another book just to start off. Stalking Tender Prey by Storm Constantine. And if you can see the spine on this has been well read. It's part of a trilogy. Stealing Sacred Fire and Scenting Hallowed Blood. And yes, they're different editions. So when we sit on the bookshelf like that, you've got no idea how much that triggers my little neatness OCD. But anyway, Storm Constantine unfortunately passed away earlier this year, so there'll be no more of the, well, she called it the Grigori Trilogy, but she's writing an awful lot about the biblical Nephilim, the offspring of angels from heaven and women of earth, normally called the Nephilim in the Bible, or giants. There were giants on the earth in those days. It's a really interesting one. It's very Old Testament, the Nephilim. Doesn't really pop up in the New Testament, but there's bits about it in the Old Testament, and it's a really interesting idea. Now, Storm Constantine writes about them as they are the bringers of gifts to men, such as language, writing, language in the form of writing, agriculture, metalworking, that sort of stuff. And it ties quite in with a lot of the things I've seen and been to when I go to the Origins conference, which has come up on my Facebook memories. 8 years ago I went to an Origins conference. It usually runs around this time of year. The Denisovians. They're called the Denisovians because their bones were found in a cave in an area that was known as Denisovia. They are possibly the original, not just giants, but bringers. They were a wandering nomadic race who were physically much different to the sort of Neanderthal tribes. They were taller, slimmer, almost sort of equine looking, long pointed faces, where the Neanderthals were short or squatter. And it's something that both myself and my wife find fascinating, because our genetic makeup, our DNA is definitely, we are of these two different tribes. I am Neanderthal. I have a Neanderthal brow. I'm quite short and squat and strong. And my wife has, let me get this straight, because she will admit herself that she's quite a mutt, Heinz 57 varieties, but she has a genetic makeup that has a lot from Java, and current thinking shows that this is the Java was where a lot of these Denisovians ended up. So these books, they sort of resonate with me. They do resonate. And they're good books as well. Never got into the vampire stuff she wrote. Just not my particular cup of coffee. But the Grigori stuff, the giant stuff, really good. And as it says in the Bible, you know, the gods walked the earth in those days. It's brings me on to something I've been sort of toying around with, thinking about. Artificial intelligence. I touched on it the other day when I talked about the William Gibson Neuromancer trilogy. And maybe one of the things I didn't make clear was in that trilogy there is a war between, or battle, a war, conflict between two opposing artificial intelligences, one called Neuromancer and one called Wintermute. They're both trying to guide humanity the best way that they think how. And artificial intelligence and humanity is a thing that pops up a lot at the moment. Pops up a lot in films. You've got the Terminator franchise. You've got the Westworld TV series, which I found absolutely amazing, especially season 3, when they got out of the theme park and into the real world, as it were. I found that really fascinating. Person of Interest TV series, it was sort of a crime procedure. Again, a sort of benevolent artificial intelligence. A Person of Interest ran for about 5 series. First couple of series was sort of a crime thing. The artificial intelligence could predict crime, could predict serious crimes, and then send human agents to try and stop these crimes. The later series, its scope got a bit bigger, and it started to experiment again with a conflict between differing AIs. One of the opposing AIs, realised that to control the population of America, New York, really, because it was all set around New York, you only had to imprison or take the power away from a handful of key players, gangland bosses, mafia bosses, or just control them, and high-ranking officials, which is what it was, and it became, I think, Person of Interest ended up in a battle between free will and control by an AI, as is Westworld. But since they're both Nolan projects, and as I said before, they're quite like the Jonathan Nolan and his brother's projects, but they do get a little bit sort of clever up themselves at times. But yeah, so my thoughts on AI, it is a bit of a complex one, because everybody's terrified of it, and things like the Terminator franchise and all that have made us scared of it, and quite rightly so. But also, what is the alternative? Because at the moment, we're being governed, and I'm back onto politics again, I know, but is the alternative to a despotic AI any better? We're being governed by insert your own words into what the government are, and then you sort of say, well, are they a better alternative to an artificial intelligence? And the answer is no, they're not. We're so, scientists and people were so terrified of AI and what it can do and what may happen, and we're all going to end up enslaved and imprisoned and all the rest of it. And yeah, that's a terrifying thought, it really is. But, we're not at that stage yet, so what are we doing? Well, we're not doing anything about it. We're just sleepwalking into it. We're sleepwalking every 5 years and just voting as we always have done, and not wanting change and not wanting to see any change. There's a sort of a cartoon doing the rounds of the social medias and all that, and it's like a bloke on a podium and a crowd, and he says, who wants change? Everybody puts their hands up. Who wants to change? No, nobody puts their hand up to that, which is about what we're at. And we will sleepwalk into a dystopia if we're not careful. I don't have all the solutions. I talk about stuff. I don't always have the solutions, but what I can see the problems, and at least if I'm trying to put it out there and point the problems out, people might, maybe smarter people than me, or people better connected or whatever, may start looking for solutions to it all. I believe in a thing called Solarpunk. There's always different punks: steampunk, cyberpunk, diesel punk, all the rest of it. But there's an element called Solarpunk now, a movement, and it's kind of vertical farming, self-sufficiency, solar power, but also, having the internet, being connected. One of the things, the internet of things, excuse me again, and I should probably touch on this more tomorrow because I'm getting close to 10 minutes. You know, if we had a system where we were connected by internet, say wireless internet as well, so we're not even having to dig up copper out of the ground and fibre optic cable and all the rest of it, which again is what sort of these developing countries have done. They've skipped the wired stage of the internet. You've got to places over on the Indian and African continents, and they're living in straw huts, but they have smartphones, and they've skipped, like I say, they've skipped the wired and the connected by wire stage of evolution, of their sort of technological evolution. They've gone straight to wireless. But if you had, like, you know, communities or whatever, people, and they're wirelessly connected, and then you had a 3D printer, you know, and if you say, well, this is broken, I need a spare part, click, and it just 3D prints it out of the filaments and all the rest that it has. I mean, it takes away an awful lot of the transport costs and things like that. I'm waffling on a bit. I am going to return to this, but time's getting on, so I'm going to, for now, say peace out.